If you've watched my channel for any length of time, you probably already know I am a massive Cartier fangirl. I think it is a maison that does not get the love and respect it deserves for their heritage and quality of timepieces. But my husband said something recently that I cannot get off my brain, and I think he might be right. He said, "Brittany, I think the Santos is the best everyday wear. I think it could possibly be a Rolex Oyster Perpetual killer." And for a hot minute, I was like, nah, no. I really couldn't see it. But the more I think about it and the more I sit on it, the more I think he might be right. Is the Cartier Santos the Rolex Oyster Perpetual killer? Let's get into it. I have an Oyster Perpetual, I love my Oyster Perpetual, and for a really long time, I thought it was the best go anywhere, do anything watch. And you know, I still think it is the best go anywhere, do anything watch. I've worn mine everywhere, from fancy formal events to wild camping for weeks on end in Scotland. It really can do anything and fit in anywhere. It's got that brushed steel that you're not afraid to scratch, a sunburst dial that plays beautifully with the light, 100-meter water resistance so you're not afraid to take it swimming. I still ultimately think it is the best go anywhere, do anything kind of watch, but there is one really big problem with it. You can't get it. Even Rolex entry-level watches are so hard to get nowadays. And cue in the Cartier Santos. The more I think about it, the more I think the Santos could be the ultimate OP killer. It is just as versatile looking. You can dress it up, you can dress it down. It has the same versatility and specs, and it's actually available. You can actually just go in and buy one if you want one. Aesthetically, I just can't figure this watch out. It has so many markers of a sports watch and so many markers of a dress watch. The rugged looking screws, the aviation heritage, the tactful and practical bracelet. But then it's contrasted with the dressiness of the Roman numerals, the way it flows and curves, the square case shape that's usually reserved for more dressy watches. It's a watch you could wear with jeans and a t-shirt, or dress it up with a suit, or take it on a big long cycling trip, which we have done. It's not a traditional dress watch like the Calatrava or a Traditionale, but it's also not chunky and sporty like a Seamaster or a Submariner. It's a thing all of its own. So we have the most recent variation of the Cartier Santos that had a few aesthetic changes from older models, most notably the bezel now flows into the bracelet. And I think this version of the Santos really has the specs to back it up as an OP killer. And then of course you come to the bracelet. So normally I would rave on and on about Rolex bracelets, and I still do, their bracelets are awesome. The OP has the 5mm micro extension, which is great, I use it all the time. But the Cartier Santos bracelet technology just blows Rolex out of the water. So with the Santos, you get the Cartier quick switch system with these little hidden buttons that make it super easy to add links, take links out, change the strap, bada bing, bada boom, bam, bam, bam. Easy peasy. And lastly, dare I say, I think I aesthetically like the looks of the Santos more. I think it is a more iconic design, far more unique, and has stayed so true to its heritage. If you look at the Santos Louis Cartier designed over a century ago, the watch still largely looks the same. And it's so unique and distinctive, you can spot it from across the room and you're like, I know what that is. It's different. Whereas the OP just kind of looks more like a watch. Just like the most bog standard watch you could ever think of. If you asked a child to draw you a watch, they would probably draw something that looks like the Oyster Perpetual. But I don't know. This is all just really opinion based. I think if you're looking for something that's, I gotta sneeze. Stuck in there. But I don't know. I think if you're looking for something that's versatile as you like, and something just maybe a little bit more different, and it has character and charm and heritage, maybe the Cartier Santos is the way forward.
Just a bit sooner than y'all was expecting.
So the number one reason I used to think the Oyster Perpetual was the ultimate go anywhere, do anything watch was because of the specs. For £4,650, you're getting the automatic caliber 3230 movement, 70-hour power reserve, screw down crown, and 100 meters water resistance. And for me, it was a water resistance that made all the difference. At the time, I had a dive watch, but I wanted something that was a little bit more everyday, something that was a little bit less bulky and, I don't know, sporty looking. And for me, the answer was the Oyster Perpetual. But the Santos has all those same specs. You get the caliber 1847 MC movement, a smaller power reserve, so 42 hours, but that same 100 meters water resistance. The specs to me are super comparable between these two. The only big difference being in the power reserve. I like having a larger power reserve. It's really nice if you don't wear your watch for a couple of days to still find it ticking and telling the right time, but it's not the end of the world. They're both just time-only watches. You don't have to set a date and go through all the ball ache of that. So it's not that big of a deal. Now with all this, I really do think the Santos could be a strong Oyster Perpetual killer. But there are some things that really could be a problem for you and noticeable differences that I think we should talk about. So one big difference is the Oyster Perpetual has a pretty healthy dose of lume, which is great if you want to be able to see the time at night. The Santos has no lume at all. So if that's a big deal to you, the Santos isn't the way forward. For me personally, it's not a really big deal at all. I can probably count on one hand the amount of times I've used the lume in my watch. Like I made sure it was all charged so I could see the time at night rather than just use my phone. It's not a big deal. Another problem that they both have is polished bezels that are absolute scratch magnets. But I would say the Cartier is even more of a scratch magnet. It's just that big flat bezel, the scratches will come. So this is the way ours looks after having it for a couple of months. We've seen some scratches come in, but we've been able to remove all the scratches with the polishing cloth so far. So that's the good news, they do come out quite easily. The last noticeable problem for me is the gulf in the price. £1,000 is a lot of money, for me at least, to spend between watches. But if you have a good relationship with your AD and you're not afraid of a cheeky ask, you can generally get a discount on a Santos, which you could never get on an Oyster Perpetual. And if availability is a big deal to you, which it probably is, because I would imagine at some point you'd want to own the watch and wear it. Oyster Perpetuals are becoming increasingly harder and harder to get. Even Rolex entry-level watches are not immune to the Rolex scarcity at the moment. Whereas you could just walk into your AD and buy a Santos right now and walk out with it. I mean, I would say yes. These are two very comparable watches, and if I had to choose which one I personally prefer, I would choose the Santos. To me, watches are more than just specs. I know there's some people who really get lost in the specifications and, oh, can it do this? What's the water resistance? But for me, it's also about the design, the way it sits on the wrist, and for me, this is where the Santos just shines. I think when it comes to design language and heritage, the Santos just has that little bit something more about it. And if you want to go anywhere, do anything watch, you have the money now and you want the watch now, I mean, the Santos has got to be the way forward. But hey, guys, this is just my opinion. This is just one gal's opinion. I do not speak for the entire community. I am no one special. I'm just a little wanker who's got a camera and talks about things online. I would love to hear your opinions, your thoughts, everything. Do you think the Cartier Santos is the Rolex Oyster Perpetual killer? Tell me everything in those comments down below. And if you like rubbish content like this and you want to keep seeing more, don't forget to give this video a like, comment, subscribe, do all those awesome things to feed the algorithm gods. And until next time, you beautiful, fabulous, wonderful watch nerds,